everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we've got some pretty big news as the first major theater chain has made an official announcement on when it is planning to reopen its theaters, and it's set to start to reopen their theaters July 1st. And so as I mentioned in yesterday's video, once Disney had postponed Soul, it seemed like the summer box office was essentially dead. We do now have theaters, though, saying, hey, we are not completely killing the summer box office just quite yet, though of course studios also have to play ball by allowing them to actually show movies and making these deals with them. And we have not heard anything from AMC other than the parent company over in China apparently has said that all of the rumors of them going bankrupt are not true. Though, of course, I'm not going to really trust anything coming out of China these days. And we have not heard anything official from Regal yet either. But the first major chain, as you can see, breaking news from Deadline.com, is that Cinemark is planning to reopen the circuit around July 1st. So we'll make sure to dive further into this article to get more details on this, as I'm sure that this will probably be a template for how other theaters might also begin to operate as they begin to start making announcements. So figuring that the beer bug crisis will calm by the summer, Cinemark CFO and COO Sean Gamble today told investors and financial analysts in a special conference call today that the chain is looking to ramp up by July 1st, with employees coming back roughly 2 weeks prior in late June. That said, openings could be state by state, county by county per Gamble, scaled by demand, with possible reduced hours and days of the week. And so that's pretty much what I was saying, is that you're not going to have all the major theaters just reopening all at one time. It's going to be a very slowed process, because obviously every state is different, even every county is different, and so you're going to see the theaters begin to reopen at some point, but it's going to be in a very scaled manner, and it looks like the Cinemark CFO is already getting that going. I would not be surprised if we were to see similar announcements being made by AMC and Regal and other theater chains across the country, because to me this is really the only pathway forward, and I honestly think it's about time for people to start getting an idea, okay, so when exactly could we expect this process to start? I honestly think that there are many places in our country where you could potentially see it start to happen within the next couple of weeks, because I think there are certain areas, certain counties, again, as this guy even mentioned, that probably have not either been that affected by it, or the cases are going down, or it seems very likely that people would be safe to go. And of course, they could still easily implement safety measures like social distancing and other things like that that could make the process that much safer to go to. But even with all that being said, it'll be interesting to see the deals that they are able to make with studios as far as what movies they're allowed to show and what kind of show times we're going to be seeing. That said, Gamble cautioned it could take 3 months before the circuit is experiencing normal levels of business. We won't be everything back day one, but dip our toe approach. Again, I think that that's a very smart idea, not just from a health perspective, but also from a business perspective as well. As I mentioned previously, there was a study was done where most people said that they would want to wait 2 or 3 weeks before going back once theaters actually start to reopen. Cinemark CEO and board director Mark Zarati added there will be 2 weeks of showing library product, high-profile library product, as the chain expects a slow flow of attendance. The big blast-off anticipated here is the weekend of July 17th to 19th, which is when Warner Brothers' Christopher Nolan Tenet is blasting off. And so that is something that I wanted to address from yesterday's video. I mentioned that there were probably movies that I had not considered, that I wasn't thinking about, that had yet to move their summer release date. And one person mentioned, don't forget Nolan's Tenet, and you're absolutely right. Nolan is, I would say, notorious for being passionate about movies, so it does not surprise me that he has kept his heels in the ground and probably told the studio, hey, Warner Brothers, you better not move this movie if you want to work with me again, is something I imagine. I think as far as directors go, Nolan probably has a pretty good amount of power, just seeing the type of movies that he's made, the amount of money that he has made for Warner Brothers in the past. So it makes sense that his movie has not been moved, and yet major Disney releases have been moved. It's just interesting to see that dynamic, play out there. So the weekend of July 17th by the 19th is when they expect things to happen. So do not be surprised if you're having places like Cinemark Cinemark or Regal or AMC looking at this Nolan film saying, hey, he's sticking his feet in the mud. He is not moving this date. Let's try and get our theaters back up going a couple of weeks beforehand, so that way once that movie does come out, we can make some decent profits off of it. And you know what? You very well could see it if they do open it at the right time around July 1st. You could see a major influx of people, because that would be that 2 or 3 week period that many people said it would take them before they would feel comfortable to go back to a movie theater once they begin to reopen. Gamble said that profitability for the circuit can be achieved on occupancy levels of 20 to 30%. So should social distancing local ordinances be in effect, we can execute that successfully and profitably. So again, I think that's a good thing for them to do. Our lowest attendance month had occupancy levels of 10%, and we still operated profitability. All right, so that's also interesting to see that they have had the ability to only occupy 10% of their theater space and yet still be profitable. So it's also very interesting that they were able to make that assumption. This late June period will be used to begin marketing again to consumers, particularly the chain's 12M addressable consumers. Security is more important than growth, says Zarate. What got us to this strength of position is that we were relatively conservative and didn't chase multiples beyond what we were able to do. Zarate's statement was in response to an analyst query on the call on whether Cinemark would be scooping up other theaters that might need a lifeline at this time. As debt starts to settle and when the beer bug crisis starts to decline and we get confirmation of when theaters can reopen, we will certainly consider them. Talking about possibly reopening, or rather buying some theaters. Again, if AMC is in a position where they can't afford to open up all their theaters, potentially see Cinemark maybe be in a financial position to be able to buy up some old AMC theaters. That could be interesting to see. With all the uncertainty, we are very pleased to operate and open, and there's going to be a time and opportunity to consider that at a later date. So it's good to hear that that's not the top of their priorities. Their priority is getting their employees back to work and also getting their theaters back to reopen. And eventually over time, once other theater chains start to follow a line, and also when we get a better idea about what those theaters can actually do and how much money that they've lost, etc., then you could potentially see, if Cinemark especially is one of the few places doing it in this way, this open, you could potentially see their market number and market share go up, and you could potentially see their profit margins go up to the point where they could potentially buy off some theaters, probably pretty cheaply. If you imagine if AMC goes under and has to restructure, and stay alive to an extent, but maybe has to sell off certain theaters, I would imagine that they would probably be willing to sell that for a decent price. But that's, of course, speculation on my part. In regards to ticket pricing in the face of safety and local ordinances, that's the reason why I'm reading the whole article, is because it covers a lot of different questions that people might have. That could be in place already. Says, we'll charge less when we start to get people back with high-profile library products. We'll be able to make deals with studio partners prior to the big tentpoles coming. And so this is what I said was likely going to happen. You're going to probably see theaters offer discounted rates, and because they have already films in their library, that's what it means by that. So high profile, that would mean films that were already released this year, but it's been several months. So I could see Onward being included in that. I could see oh my goodness, not a lot of films have come out this year. Sonic the Hedgehog came out this year as well. So other bigger, other major releases that came out January, February that they still have in their systems, and all they really need are digital keys to be sent to them to be able to actually show them on screens. You could see them. Those are the films that he's talking about as far as those high-profile library products. And as he mentioned, they'd probably be able to make some pretty good deals with the studios to be able to have those keys and to be able to have those shows and those movies at a reasonable price to allow them to be able to make some profit off of it, while the studio would also get some money from it as well, and also be able to get them in place so that, as he says, they don't have to charge more for tentpole pictures. And so the scare here is, are they going to have to charge a much higher ticket price for once new movies start coming out? So when Tenet comes out, would they have to charge $5 to $10 more, perhaps, compared to their regular ticket prices? He's saying he doesn't anticipate it. It's a very good thing. I think what's going to depend and determine that is going to be whether the studios want to play ball. I imagine they will, because they're going to want to make as much money as they possibly can as well. But the only way they know they can do that is by bringing the people back to the theaters, and they need to play ball with the theaters in order to get that to happen. So Randy also emphasized that given how 60% of the chain's auditoriums have recliners, there's already a degree of social distancing in place in the chain. If you've never been to a theater like that where there's the reclining seats, there actually is a fair amount of space between seats already, and so it would not be nearly as hard. There's also less seats in those theaters, so that's interesting to hear that 60% of the theaters already have that. He envisioned two possibilities in regards to spacing moviegoers, in which Cinemark would sell every other seat or suspend reserved seating for a period of time, selling only 50% of the seats. Again, that makes a lot of sense as well. We will let the consumer know that they are walking into a highly clean, highly sanitized environment. As whether the chain will take temperatures of moviegoers as they enter the multiplex, he says, no decision to do that, and I think that's a good thing. Dear Lord, if I had to get my temperature taken just to go see a movie, I wouldn't go see a movie. That would be a big deterrent for me to not want to go to the theater. So I think it's a good thing for him to say that they don't plan to do that. It's not to say it's not part of the plan, but we don't anticipate that. Please do not. Word is that in China, the plan is to take moviegoers' temperatures, and Disney boss Bob Iger has floated the idea when the Konglom's theme park reopens. And that is, again, why I do not trust Disney, because if Disney is going to be doing the same thing that China's doing, taking people's temperatures to go to a theme park, I'm sorry, I got some problems with that, bud. Asked about how anxious the majors are for theaters to reopen, and the whole issue of some big picks like Universal DreamWorks Trolls World Tour going to VOD, Zarate said that with the theatrical repping 54% of movies' revenues, studios are very anxious like exhibition to return to form. Most of the majors have delayed their big picks, and Zarate didn't seem to be threatened by Uni's decision to take Trolls World Tour. Universal came out very clearly and made the decision when we were closing our theaters. They felt like they spent so much in marketing money and putting commitments like McDonald's that they had no choice. And so that's specifically talking about films like Trolls World Tour, where they put so much money into it already, they had to start making money back on those investments, and also having deals with McDonald's, which really couldn't be moved, especially with McDonald's being one of the few places that's still open. Again, getting those toys from those Happy Meals is a great way for them to be able to make some money as well, and so you don't turn that down. That kind of money. But it is interesting that they talk about here how theatrical openings usually account for 54% of movies' entire revenues. That's actually a number I've never heard before, so that's something that I might have to start taking into account whenever I do my box office numbers, is that that means 46% of a movie's revenue comes from DVD, Blu-ray, and streaming sales and deals. So that's interesting. And I would not be surprised if, because of everything going on with all of this percentage starts to drop, because I think Trolls World Tour at this point is doing pretty well on the video on demand services, and I imagine other films will likely go on demand as well before the summer ends. And so with that being said, I would not be surprised if this percentage begins to drop as well. But that is the full statement from the people over at Cinemark. And so again, this is a longer video, but I wanted to make sure to read all of the points and give my commentary on them, because as I said, a lot of this stuff is stuff that I said was likely going to happen. It's great that Cinemark has come out and actually made a statement about it. I'm hoping that people from Regal and AMC also begin to start making statements as well as far as their plans go. And let me know your thoughts. Are you excited that Cinemark has said at least by July 1st? Again, I think that's, for me, a little too far out. I would like to see things opening sooner, but obviously they are running a business and they want to make sure everything is as safe as can be. So I totally understand where they're coming from, but dear Lord, let's get back to work. But let me know your thoughts about this and all the things we talked about in the comment section below. Like this video, smash that like button, hit that subscribe. It helps us out a lot, especially during these crazy times. You're amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now a huge shout out to my April Patreon and Subscribe Star members. We have animation commentator Brian P., Dion, Divex, Elizabeth M., Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, Hail Father, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Wiener Dog Clan, Harold Francis, The Hunker Chunky Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, Intertrap Productions, Jason Clark, Jeffrey Toon, JJ Jonathan Jerembeck, Kenneth Cameo, Lady T, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mike Jackson, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, Orange Hat Reviews, Outpost Dyer, Perpetual Punster, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Steve Glasker, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, The DJD Show, and Tina B. And to my Subscribe Star members, Robert Revo, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, G2 Cool 99, Dark Star 57, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, Harold Francis, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nebadan G. Adams, and ZK Man. And out of step with reality, I'm going to go ahead and leave that blank spot just previously in case any more people decide to become a Patreon or Subscribe Star member over the next few days. Just remember that as soon as you sign up, you are immediately eligible for any of the benefits. If you just sign up at the $1 tier on Subscribe Star or Patreon, you get a shout out at the end of every single video, including my live streams. If you're a $5 or up backer on either platform, you get access to exclusive giveaways where I give away several 4K Blu-rays, digital copies every single month as well. If you jump up to the $10 tier on either platform, you get access to all of that, plus you get access to an exclusive podcast that I do with my friend John the Flick Pick of John Flickinger and the Flick Pick fame. We do a bi-weekly podcast, so every 2 weeks or so we do one. So you get probably about 2 or 3 depending on what's going on, probably more so now with everything going on in the craziness of our world. But you do get access to that. Also, if you are at that $10 tier, it means that you get to take part in the Q&A part of that podcast. And so about 24 to 48 hours before the podcast, maybe even longer beforehand, I'll leave a post in the Patreon Subscribe Star. You'll be able to leave a comment on a question that you want us to answer, on a topic that you want us to cover in a future podcast as well. All of that you have access to. And if you're a $25 backer and up, you get all of those things. Plus, you get a t-shirt for your first month. That's right. You get a free t-shirt, high quality Odin's Movie Vlog t-shirt. So just make sure if you're at a $25 and up backer level, you leave your address. That way I know where to send that to. And also I will be messaging you to get your size information. That way I can send that out to you as quickly as possible. But you also get access to an exclusive Chosen of Valhalla live stream that we have once a month on this channel, where I invite you to be on the show. You can either show your face or not show your face, or hey, you don't have to show up at all. It's totally up to you. And we talk about a wide variety of things. We talk about movies that you've been watching, modern things going on, the pop culture, and pretty much anything that you yourself want to talk about. So if any of these things sound interesting to you and things that you'd want to do, please hit that Patreon Subscribe Star link in the description of this video and think about joining today. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And as always, God bless.